Morning, everybody. Welcome to today's webinar. Really excited to be with you today. We've got some really exciting content to take you through. So today we're going to be talking about merge games and what they're doing to make so much money at the moment. It's a huge growth area for the marketplace. We're going to be looking at the core merge game mechanics and the challenges that game designers have faced when they're creating merge games and what they're doing to make them such compelling, interesting, and engaging games. We're going to look at a couple of different deconstructions today and look at how games like 2048, Merge Mention, and a couple of others have implemented these merge mechanics. We're going to see how different game designers have created different types of constraints and drains on the core mechanic to keep players coming back again and again. And as I mentioned, we're going to be looking at a couple of different deconstructions to give you some ideas of how you can design your own merge games in the future. My name's Matthew. I'm the evangelist for Machinations. I'm still horribly addicted to Factorio, but also been playing a lot of Shipbreaker recently, really enjoying that ability just to smash up spaceships. And alongside me, as always, is Cesar, a diagram craftsman, who's been building all the models for us today and has got some incredible stuff that he's just going to flex on us later on and show us what he's been creating. Throughout today's session, we're going to be, please do ask your questions in the chat or in the Q&A boxes, and we'll be answering these as we go. And I'm going to kick off the poll in a moment. But first, I just want to get into what's happening with merge games and what are they doing to make so much money at the moment. If you don't already subscribe or listen or follow along the Deconstructors of Fun, I highly recommend it. Actually, I'll ask Mihai to post a link for it into the chat in a moment. But merge games are growing extremely quickly. Puzzle games as a genre casual games as a genre generated $9.8 billion in-app purchase revenue during 2020. Puzzle games was a huge growth area. And merge games up at the top in the middle there in the blue box, merge games grew 104% in revenue during 2020 and are likely to carry on rising. And there's some really interesting game mechanics that designers are creating to make this such a high growth area that's capturing the player audiences and generating these big revenues. So what's making merge games appealing? Merge Mansion, one of the games we're going to be talking about today, is seeing fantastic revenues, generating $5 million just in July alone, split between iTunes and Google Play. And one of the key reasons for this is really simple gameplay. It's really quick for a player to pick up a merge game and quickly understand what the mechanics are. So there's no real learning curve. There's no complex mechanics that we have to explain to the player. If someone can grab one of these on their mobile device, works extremely well with a touchscreen, dragging and dropping items to merge them, makes it really, really compelling. That instant satisfaction that players get from bringing order out of chaos. Maybe I'll share where my Merge Mansion garage looks like at the moment. It's nowhere near that organized, but being able to kind of create order and align things, there's just an immense feeling of satisfaction that players get from doing that. And also, it's very, very clear mechanics because of that merge. You get to level 1, you get to level 2, you merge 2 level 2s to get to level 3 and so on. Players instantly know what they have to do next and what their next progression is, and that great reward of unlocking the latest items or the highest level item that they possibly can. So lots of people brand new to Machinations, that's great. If some of this looks too complicated, I'd recommend joining one of our 101 sessions. We've got one coming up in a week or so. Alternatively, there's a recording of our 101 session where we literally walk through all of the details of each object and show exactly how they can be applied. For those of you that are already kind of building doodles, also Cesar's going to flex on us and show us some really complicated stuff later. Most of our models today are fairly simple. We're really just going to be talking about what the game mechanics that game designers have actually created. So let's kick off and let's just understand what the core mechanics of a merge game actually are. So here I have a source. Sources generate resources, and the sending in level 1 resources. We then have a converter. These converters are set to automatic and pull all. And we take 2 level 1 items, we convert them into 1 level 2 item. It's that simple. That's pretty much 99% of everything we're going to be looking at today. So if you are new to Machinations, don't worry. Now, when I hit play on this, you'll see here we've got an example. Let me slow it down a bit. Here we've got an example. Player receives a level 1 item. Once they've got 2 of them, they're combined into 1 level 2 item. Once they've got 2 level 2 items, they're combined, merge into 1 level 3. Down the bottom here, sometimes rather than requiring 2 items to merge, sometimes you can need 3, or I've even seen examples of games where you need 4 or more items to merge to get them to the next level. And this is pretty much the trend with merge games, where we're looking at taking a number of 1 level item, merging them together and producing a higher level item. Now, we can extend this. So rather than just having a couple of levels, here we're going up to level 20. The numbers underneath each of these pools are showing how many of the level 1 items you need to get to that higher level. So at the moment, we've got a resource at level 16. It's going to take us a while now to get this to go up to level 32. And the amount of time it's going to take to get from level 32 to 64 is doubled. The amount of time it's going to take to get the next level is doubled again, to the point where if I were to leave this model running, we would need over 500,000 steps to get an item from level 1 all the way through to level 20. And this is really where it starts to highlight some of the challenges of merge games in creating these huge long merge chains, where it starts to introduce a challenge of after a period of time, it can start to get a bit repetitive and a bit boring. So as game designers, we've got to look at this mechanic and think, what can we do to add some more complexity to this that's going to engage players and want them to carry on going through this merge process? Now, the first example we're going to talk about today is 2048. In fact, I'm going to launch a quick poll just to see which of these 3 games have you all played in the past. So today we're going to look at 2048, Merge Planes, and Merge Mansion. Just tick those. You can tick as many as you like. Which of those games you played before? 2048 is rapidly, I think most people have played that, so I'm probably not going to need to explain these mechanics very much. Perfect. Well, if you haven't played any, just don't tick any of the boxes. There we go. I'll share the results so you can see what's going on. You can see here most people have played 2048. Good portion of you have played Merge Planes, but not as many. That's fine. We'll explain that. And quite a lot of you have played Merge Mansion as well. Good. So let's have a look at 2048. Here's a model, a very simplified model of 2048. And in 2048, the key extra mechanic that's introduced into this merge mechanic is the space constraint. So it's a 4x4 grid, and the aim of the game is to merge all of your numbers together. Only matching numbers can be merged. So here, right at the start of this chain, you can see players receiving resources. They're coming into a gate. The player, most of the time you receive a number 2, occasionally you'll receive a number 4. So I've got a random gate that's distributing the resources coming in each move between 2 and 4. Once you have 2 2s, they can be merged into a 4, 4s can be added together to be an 8, and so on. Now, there's a really interesting negative reinforcement loop within the game 2048, which is if your tiles start to be filled up, it means that actually it reduces the odds of you actually being able to merge them. So we see a kind of a negative reinforcement loop where if things start to go wrong and you start to fill up a lot of your tiles and you haven't been able to merge them, they're in the wrong position, that actually reduces the chances of you being able to merge things in the future. So the way in which I've simulated this inside Machinations is I do have a lot of messy stuff going on in the background, but effectively what I've got is a register that's counting how many of the tiles are filled at the moment. And then it's using that to reduce the odds of the resources being merged at any point. So here between 2 and 4, I've got a gate that's triggering my converter and saying it's looking at how many items there are in the tiles at the moment. And for every tile that's filled, it's reducing the odds of them being merged by 1%. And this carries on throughout. And you'll notice that the odds of being able to merge these higher numbers reduces as you get into higher numbers. The beauty of this is from here, we can then do some quick runs. Now, I think this is the first time we've shown a webinar since we've introduced our new quick run, quick play feature. The first thing you'll notice is I've been doing a whole bunch of testing on this. So Machinations now keeps a record of all of your play history. So if you've done some runs, you've closed Machinations, you open up Machinations again, you can simply come to Machinations, open this up and say show in chart. It'll then pull all those results in for you so that you can see plays you've done in the past or even different versions of the model. So if you've made some changes, you can then compare previous results with your latest results. The other really big change, which has been a fantastic development for Machinations, is we're now using AWS Lambda. So when I send off for 20 quick plays, it's packaging up our Machinations model, sending this up to AWS Lambda. Depending on which plan you have, that's how many different parallel calculations you can do. I'm lucky I've got the AAA account, which means I can run 20 parallel streams. So all of my results have come back incredibly quickly. While it's running those, you can go off and do something else. You can even change the model you're on. You'll get this pop-up that says when your simulations have been completed. Now, this is this chart's tracking, the red line is tracking how many tiles are being filled at any point. I'll make this a bit larger so we can see what's going on. The dotted line, that's the other big change, is that we've now made the min-max values dotted lines, so it can easier to differentiate this between the mean average and the min and max. So where you can see these spikes in the at the top here, this is where the players reached 16 filled tiles, aren't able to merge anymore and have lost their game. And you can really see the impact of this negative reinforcement loop in the graph here, where with each of these spikes, things have started to go wrong and they've escalated and the players have not been able to merge anymore. Down the bottom here, this is where, bottom right-hand corner, this is where players have actually been able to complete the game. So I've been tracking how many tiles used and also how many resources in the 2048 pool itself. So this is where I can see how many players are actually able to complete the game and how many have kind of lost, or how many attempts has it taken to be able to complete it. So a real quick way of being able to see these results. The infrastructure is so significantly faster now. Quick plays were quick before, but now they are significantly faster. Up next, we're going to have a quick look at Merge Planes. I think this was the least played game that everybody's seen. Great game, came out a few years ago. I know Horia played this a lot. I know I played it a lot when it first came out, which is one of the reasons where we thought we'd look at this mechanic. Very simple game. You get planes, add them into your airport. Your planes, you then send off your planes flying around the loop to generate you money. So it's actually combining a merge game mechanic with an idle game mechanic as well. So while you're not actually inside the game, those planes are still generating revenue for you. So you can go back to that game and then you can spend the money that those planes have generated for you by buying more planes. And by combining two planes of the same value, you get a plane of the next level up. And as you can see here, the planes go from level 1 for the very first plane that you get, all the way up to level 60. So it's a huge chain of planes, of different level planes, I should say. Now, a little while ago, Cesar and I actually built a deconstruction of merged planes during one of our live streams. If you'd be interested in kind of going through and seeing how we actually built this model, it's available on our YouTube channel. But here, I'll zoom in here so you can see what's going on. Very similar sort of mechanic. You can see we've got exactly the same sort of chain that we've seen in 2048 and my example of a merge game, where it's pool, converter, pool. It takes 2 of one level item to be upgraded into the next level item. Now, in this model, Cesar and I went all the way up to level 20, I think it was, mostly because we were slightly lazy, but I think it's enough to kind of show you the core mechanic that they've created to keep this interesting. As I showed you, to get to level 20, you'd need over 500,000 level 1 planes, so that would take a huge amount of time and could be quite time consuming. The way in which these designers have done this at Gaga Games is you start off receiving level 1 planes and buying level 1 planes. Just down here, I've got a very small player loop where the player's either going to spend time inside the game, or occasionally they're going to spend some time outside of the game, taking advantage of that idle game mechanic, which means that they'll then receive an amount of money for 8 hours that they've been away. While they're in the game, 1 step is 1 minute. So there's a small chance that they can receive a level 1 plane. As they progress through the game, whereas our player got to so far, level 7. Once they get to level 7, rather than receiving level 1 planes or buying level 1 planes, they then actually start to receive higher level planes. So we've done that here by kind of controlling through the gate which level planes the player's receiving. But effectively, what we're doing here is we're moving along the lowest level and the highest level in parallel almost as the player progresses through the game. So you start off by receiving level 1. Once you get to level 7 or 8, you then start receiving level 2. And eventually you just reach a plateau where the level of plane that you're receiving as default is 10 levels below your highest level plane. So by the time you get to a level 60 plane, you're then receiving a level 50 plane often. So actually, although the game economy increases slightly in the amount of time it takes to go through this, it means that actually the number of merges that you need to do to get to your next highest level plane doesn't actually increase. So it never goes above 10 levels of difference between the plane you're receiving and the plane you're going to want to get to. So it's a great way of, although you go all the way up to level 60, you don't have to have 50 million trillion level 1 planes to do that. You can actually just do that with a standard number of planes for every new level that you're trying to get to. So a really interesting game mechanic and a great way of cutting out the repetitiveness of the game. Up next, the game we're going to look at is really where the future of a lot of these games are going and where the big money's coming in from the industry. So rather than having a puzzle game or a merge game with a very just for its own sake, what we're calling then meta merge games or meta puzzle games, where rather than it just being completing a puzzle for the sake of it, like 2048, the only purpose of going through 2048 is to see what the highest number tile you can create. Meta puzzles, and then looking at creating some different type of game mechanics or incentives so that the player's got a reason to go through and complete the puzzle. So in the example of Merge Mansion, I'm really pleased to see that so many of you have played it because it is a really great example of a meta puzzle game, is that as you go through and you create items through your merge chains, And rather than there just being one merge chain as there is in merge planes, we actually then have multiple merge chains of different types of items that you can combine into higher levels. But you then are using those items inside the metagame to complete different tasks and different quests. So let's jump over to Merge Mansion. This one. So Merge Mansion, again, Chesa and I built this deconstruction during one of our live streams a couple of weeks ago. Here you can see we've got multiple examples of this merge mechanic. So we're kicking off with our tools that go through level 1 all the way through to level 9. And we've got multiple different chains that the player can build and merge their items together into higher levels. Now, the really important thing from a game mechanic perspective is rather than just continuously trying to get to the highest level item possible, as we have with merge planes, the mechanic here is that we're using those quests to create different types of drains to reduce the number of items and reduce the higher tier items out of the player's economy. So as I hit play here, I'll slow this down slightly so I can walk you through what's happening. Again, we've got a simplified game loop here where we're creating different options for our player. So when I hit start, I have a little red counter. For those of you that have watched a few of our live streams or webinars before, you'd have seen us use this type of mechanic quite a lot to simulate different player choices and different player paths. So here, we're giving the player the ability to open different items in their chests. When they open up their chests, they're receiving different types of items, which are coming into our multiple merge chains. As we can see here, the players then started to receive some of these items, and they're going through merging these items to clear up space in their garage and also reach those higher levels. Now, one of the key parts of this is by using this to create our missions, is that we're then removing those items from the economy. This is a great way of keeping it interesting so the player can actually wants to go through and generate the higher level items, but rather than just then, as we saw with merge planes, taking longer and longer to merge level 1 items all the way up into level 11 or 12, it actually means that the player can get rid of those items much, much faster and complete those tasks. So we're creating incentive and motivation for these players to be able to go through and create those items to drain down from the economy. The way in which this is then monetized is by creating different ways for the player to progress and accelerate their gameplay. So the key items that are then being sold inside the game through in-app purchases are, firstly, it's power or energy. So for every item that you generate, it's drawing down the player energy. And then for every time if you then run out of energy during a single gameplay session, you can then purchase with hard currency extra energy to extend your gameplay. Also, you have the ability to directly purchase the items that you need in order to complete the different missions that you have. So it means that it's a very clear mechanic. Players can immediately see what they need to do and actually they have those tempting offers to have them monetize inside their games. Cesar, is there anything you'd add to that?
I would maybe do a recap of what you talked about. So it all starts from the merge game mechanic that you showed in the first model, with all of the chaining items going into a level 20 item, but it can go up to level 100, 1000. So the items can get quite big. And as Matthew said, those items, because there is an exponential increase, those items get to a point where you need like millions of level 1 items in order to get anywhere. And the 3 games we talked about all handle this in a different way. Starting with 2048, the one very important thing they do is that they do not aim for a very high level item, so to speak. You stop at 2048, which is technically a level 11 item, and it's not really about the focus of the game is not merging extremely high level items. It's more about the limited board that you get. The very important fact that board management is relevant in 2048, because in most games you can merge you can merge different items from whichever distance. In 2048, they actually need to be next to each other for you to merge them. So board space management and board item placement become very important in 2048, and the fact that you don't have to go to such a high level makes it possible so that they can keep generating level 1 items and get away with it. For merge planes, I actually like merge planes as a game concept because they combine 2 different games, which is merge and idle. Normally in 2048 and merge mansion, for instance, you get those items out of boxes or they appear out of thin air, while in merge planes you receive them by purchasing them. And how do you obtain the currency to purchase them? Well, those planes in turn generate currency for you. So it's a constant loop where you generate higher level planes and they generate more money for you. That increasing number of currency allows you to purchase higher level planes from the get-go and generate more in return. And obviously the prices increase over time so that the player does not get ahead of the curve. But such a mechanic where you're dependent on currency to obtain new items is also a great idea in my opinion. And the fact that you can, as Matthew said, purchase higher level planes from the get-go is a way to mitigate that mechanic where at higher levels you need. So if you're looking at a level 50 plane, you're not gonna need to buy level 1 planes, you're gonna be able to buy level 45 planes, which of course is going to be a much faster route to get to level 50. So that is a way to mitigate the fact that you need higher and higher level planes. And merge mansion, lastly, the way in which they implement it, there are 2 key things that stand out to me. One is the fact that you can merge multiple different items. So in 2048 and merge planes, you only have the one item you can merge. In here, you have multiple different items that you can merge together. You have tools, flowers, seeds, stuff like that. And the other would be the fact that once you do get to, although you do not have such long chains as level 20, 30, they use those quests that they generate in order to remove items from your inventory. So if your quest demands that you have a level 6 or 7 tool, something like that, you're going to work out how to merge that tool from level 1. You're going to do it 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Once you get to level 6, instead of going even higher, you're going to turn in the quest and you're going to lose that level 6 tool and you're going to start again from scratch. But the next quest might request a level 7 tool. So it's a small increase every time, or some quests even request 2 different items, like a level 6 tool and a level 4 flower. So you are constantly looking to merge smaller level items, but the game does remove them from the board for you. So again, you're not required to get to a very high level, so it keeps things interesting. And by solving those quests, you unlock new areas, you can receive new items. So it's a constant feeling of having fresh content, which again, I find it a very smart approach. So these are just 3 ways in which you can mitigate the problem that Matthew was talking about, which is when does a level have too high of a requirement for a player and it just gets plain repetitive and boring. And as you see, each different game, although they share the same core mechanic, the same core loop, all of them have done something different to mitigate that mechanic. Is this your garage, Matthew?
It is.
I mean, it looks better than mine because at least you have the flowers lined up on the left. I don't even have that. I mean, it's even messier. But your space is kind of lacking.
Yeah, I haven't been that organized with it. I know I put a slide in my deck earlier to say that it being organization from chaos is part of it, and I do keep on meaning to tidy up. my garage, both in real life and inside the game.
Yeah, and another common mechanic, since we can see this screen now, it becomes quite obvious. All three games, even the one with planes, have a board limit. So it's important to manage your resources so as they don't clutter your board and you are able to merge them. Because in this, as we see right now, the way Matthew's board is looking, if he got 3 new items in here or 4, he'd be forced to trash some of them because there's no way he can merge any of them to create space. So that's an important aspect of all merge games in general.
Actually, I think one of the things that Merge Mansion's done really well is because there is always that space constraint, is the ability to then buy extra inventory slots.
Yeah.
So that, you know, when you are really frustrated and you think, oh, I can just buy extra slots. So I've got such a large inventory because I did an in-app purchase so I could have more space to make it easier for me. And that's really the beauty of the Machinations model, which is being able to test and identify how much capacity a player actually needs as they're going through and building out their environments. One of the questions that's come in is, can you nest things in Machinations, make Machinations that you use as a component in another Machinations? I'm going to show my core game loop model for this. So you can see here in red, this is my player loop. When I hit play, it generates one resource that comes into a gate. It then has different player options or player paths available. As you notice, the complete quest isn't available. It's grayed out because we haven't created the object that we need in order to complete that yet. So what we can then do with Machinations is I tend to use this type of mechanic a lot. I think it's almost most games I end up creating that loop. So over here, in the library, we have the public items in our library, of which there's lots of different examples of constructions that you can use in your own models. We have a team, so when Cesar and I are building the content for the webinars and different projects that we're working on, we often kind of build items that we can then reuse or repurpose during the webinars. In my own one, I've got this mechanic, my player choice loop, so that I can click this and drag this into any model I'm working on. And you'll notice if I drop this here, you'll see this is the same as this red one. I just changed the color of it. So one of the things you can use your library for is if you are building a particular mechanic and you do think you're going to reuse it again and again, you can simply highlight the area, right click, and then say add to your library. And this will then enable you to save that for future use. I'll delete that for now. Now in the chat, oh, sorry, we've got another question come in. Yeah, certainly. So Horia, if you have a look at our live streams, I think Horia's actually already dropped the link into our YouTube channel. Every Tuesday at 3:30 Central European Standard Time, we jump onto YouTube and we go through and have a look at a game and we do a deconstruction. So this week we were looking at Merge 3 games and how to generate the meta and the progression system of Merge 3 games. And I think in the past, we've looked at the Merge games and a few others, but always open to suggestions. If there's any particular games you'd like to see Cesar and I do a deconstruction of, please do let us know, and we'll certainly see if we can do that during one of those sessions.
Yeah, the beauty of the live stream is that unlike the webinar where we actually prepare beforehand, we go into a live stream pretty much blind. So we are there to accept any type of suggestions that you have, and we try to build stuff on the spot. We try to play games on the spot and build them on the spot and see how far we can go in an hour and a half. So if any of you here have any suggestions, we are more than happy to try and build them in the next live stream.
Excellent. So the chart here at the moment in this chart, we literally just have which level, which missions the player completed. So we set up 3 missions at first. So each of these missions is merging up to a certain level item that's then drained down from the player's economy to be used to go in merge a mansion, clear an area of path, or plant some trees, or build bridges and all sorts of things. I'm sure that it gets later on in the game. I'm sure there's more things that you do. I've just got to the point where I'm painting bridges and planting flowers around the place. Now, Cesar, are you ready to do your grand reveal of what you've been working on?
I guess we can do it, yeah. Let me share. So hopefully,
Cesar, when we started looking at merge games, and we obviously one of the first games we thought of was 2048. Although that was, even the designer admits that was inspired by Threes, which was my kind of go-to merge game when that came out. I loved the characters of the different tiles. I thought they were really fun. For those of you that remember Threes, so Cesar, do you want to show us what you've built for us today?
yeah, it was kind of like a fun personal project. I used to play 2048 a lot. I used to really like the game. And you saw Matthew's example today that was based off a chance to merge into the next number that decreases the higher the number you get according to the space on the board that you have. So it was kind of an automatic process. What I was thinking of is, what if we build the actual model of 2048 inside Machinations, which is what I had a go at, and obviously not build it in an automatic way, more like an interactive way, so that the player can actually play the game. So before I get into it, I want to show I have the board here, which is 4x4, like in the game. I see that most of you have played the game, so there's no need to explain the rules. And as you know, you can click one of the four: up, left, right, or down. I know it's not properly colored because I didn't get the time to do it. Hopefully you can follow if I play slowly and explain. You can see that we start off with two twos in here. So if I go to the right, you're going to notice that everywhere else we have a 0. If I go to the right, I moved the 2 inside, and as in 2048, every time you make a move, a new resource is generated in an empty space. It can either be a 2 or a 4. Higher likelihood of it being a 2, but it can sometimes be a 4. So I got a 4 in here now. I will want to merge these two together, so I'm going to press down. So I'm going to merge them into a 4. I've generated another 2 in here and moved. Hopefully I want to generate the two 4s into an 8 now, so I'm going to press right, merge them together, move the 2 to the right, generated another one. And as you can see, even though it's a bit hard to track because of the lack of colors, this is basically 2048, the actual game, simulated inside Machinations, and you can play it however you want. Maybe I usually tend to play like I play seriously, where I just press right and down and try to form the highest number in a corner, but maybe mess up a little this time. You can see that all of my spaces are slowly being occupied. For instance, in the top, I can't even do left or right now because I have no space. But obviously, as I play, I can declutter the model and numbers shift around. Now, this was done just for flexing purposes, so to speak. I will be sharing this model at the end of the webinar, so worry not, everyone can play with it. The problem with the model is that it has over 1,000 components, which goes over the community plan. But as long as you open it in the link and play it in the link, it won't be saved, so you can play with it freely and see the mechanics. Now, Matthew, I'm not sure if I should show the layers or not.
I think you should, just because of how much there is going on here, Cesar, and I think you should fully flex.
Yeah. So even though I try to make it look pretty, it's not pretty. You can see in the bottom right here that I have a bunch of layers, which is the logic behind how I shift numbers around. Now, if I'm just going to click on this and have no further explanations, it's going to just clutter my entire screen. But I have to say that this is a very, let's say, efficient way to use layers. So if you do a model like this ever, you're definitely going to want to use layers. You can see that I even named them properly. So if I want to look at a certain mechanic, I can identify it immediately. And you can see that I barely see the model anymore if I uncover the layers, and the components go up to 1127. So it's been quite a big job for me, especially since I hate working with connections. Like Matthew's so much better than me at that. So yeah, it was fun. But seeing it work, and it does work properly, I'm thinking it was all worth it. So hopefully some of you here will have a play with it and maybe enjoy the game. Maybe even those of you that haven't played the game, just to check it out and see how it is.
There's a fantastic question that's come in from an anonymous attendee, which says, what is the advantage of building the game inside Machinations? Absolutely none whatsoever. This
Absolutely
is
none.
100%
Exactly.
Cesar flexing on his Machinations ability and showing what can be done.
It would be advantageous if you would build it in an automated way and make it so that it is played automatically, and look at certain metrics that you're interested in. Maybe see how fast the player can get to a 512 tile, and then you can put in 1,000 quick plays and just look at the results. That would be an advantageous case. But building this in an automatic way, I don't even want to think about it. So yeah. Making a playable game inside Machinations, absolutely no advantage. It's just fun.
Yeah, I mean, although this is obviously a super complex model, because you're literally building the entire game logic in here. But actually, the fact that you're able to do this in less than a couple of days inside Machinations does show the power of Machinations.
Yeah, you're right. It kind of also shows the fact that you can build pretty much anything you want inside Machinations. Like, your imagination is the limit. When I started building this, I was thinking of different cases and was thinking at first, there's no way I can build this. There's too much logic involved. But as I slowly started to implement it, it became quite clear to me. And even though you see a lot of stuff in here, most of it is just arrows that I drag around. I mean, it's brainless work. So it's really, really not that complicated as it seems.
That's fantastic. It's certainly a lot of fun. I know I'm going to have a bit of fun playing 2048. See if I can get to 2048. So the next question is, have you got to 2048 in Machinations yet?
In Machinations, I haven't. I haven't played. I finished this model today, like a few hours before this webinar. So I haven't got around to play it now.
Okay.
My own model.
So we'd love, if anybody's watching this, obviously this link will be posted. This model will be posted out. We'd love it. First person to get to 2048 should definitely get a prize. If anyone gets to 2048 inside Machinations version of it, send us a screenshot without cheating, and we'll send you a prize. I don't know. I think we've only got one type of prize, but we'll send it. Mihai, do you want to come and join us and just talk to us about merge games for a moment?
Hi, everyone.
So Mihai and I have been chatting a lot today, actually, just around merge games and merge game mechanics, and just kind of what's going on with kind of creating these whale games that are generating so much money and creating these compelling meta puzzle games. I don't know, is there anything else you'd add to what we've been chatting about today, Mihai? Put you on the spot.
Thanks for that. First of all, I'd love for anyone in the audience to raise a hand, join the stage, and share their thoughts. Second, you guys have brilliantly explained all the inner machinations of what happens with all the virtual economy. And I would like us at some point to circle back and discuss how does revenue link to that, right? So we talked about the exponential progression of resources. We've talked about brilliant ways of syncing them. But the overall meta of energy mechanic and the time-based economy, which it is in the end, I think that's the fascinating stuff. And I was just playing around with Merge Mansion. I'm quite new to it, but I've had the chance of picking it up from scratch. And the only thing I would add as number 3 is the brilliant work that the developers have put into the narrative and the meta around the meta, right? So you've got a super fairly simple merge mechanic. You can go about thinking of it from, I think, even from before the days of Puzzle and Dragons. You would merge/match some items. They would turn into something, whether it's combat attack or the days of Best Fiends, if anyone remembers that title. I think in this particular title, like in Merge Mansion, you get to craft the items, consume them instantly for something that's very visually laid out on a map. And then you get the progression of the map, like you can scroll all the way and see. I can barely wait to, actually hopefully get into the mansion. And not only that, but I'm kind of semi-vested in the story as well. Like there's a history there, there's unraveling. You have this almost legendary story of, the first time you unravel the plate at the entry of the garden, and you peek and you see the name of the mansion, and you then talk with grandma and see the whole history of it. I'm kind of hooked. So those are my 2 cents for now.
I think really the meta puzzles are generating that almost narrative gameplay experience, but combined with the puzzle mechanic or the merge mechanic in this example. The games like Gardenscapes or Homescapes, which have done such a fantastic job of taking a match 3 game mechanic and combining it with this narrative to create the motivation and the reason for completing a puzzle. We've seen the king of Candy Crush Saga and that endless loop of puzzles for a player to consume, and always fresh puzzle and content coming out on it. But it really means that there's no other reason of completing that puzzle other than getting to the next level and seeing how far you can get, and that's the motivation for it, which I think has been enough for a long time. But over the past couple of years, with this introduction of meta puzzles, is really creating brand new kind of marketplaces for games to really pick up and take on a whole new meaning.
Let me interrupt you for a bit. We have one question in the chat, which is, do you plan to implement a sort of conditional formatting for color? And I'm going to let Mihai answer that one.
Not in the roadmap yet, but promises we'll get there after this stream. We noticed that when we were playing 2048 right before the webinar.
Yeah, they saw my model before the webinar, and their first idea was, how can we make this colorful based on the number that's inside?
So yeah, very fresh and obvious suggestion. Thanks for that. It's going to get in the roadmap. I have no better answer.
And the second one, which is in the Q&A, what would you recommend for someone who met Machinations today and works in hyper-casual games area? Is there any guide for this? We have a hyper-casual game deconstruction, I believe Pen Run, which is a video I did last year. We have it on YouTube on our channel that basically goes through the process from playing the game to building a very simple model based on it. Hyper-casual games usually tend to be really small models, like 50 nodes, because the core loop of the game is very basic. So we also have some templates. I believe we have Jump Stack and something Hunter Assassin. You can search for these in the templates. So we've got a bunch of hyper casual models, yeah. But I would recommend checking the YouTube video of Pen Run. That's probably the best source of inspiration. And there's another one. In your opinion, what's the most interesting mechanic in merge games that allow the insane revenue they are making? I would personally argue that the most, I wouldn't call it a mechanic, but the biggest catch in merge games is the fact that they are so intuitive and easy to learn. You can basically install it, start playing, and you don't need a tutorial at all. Usually the tutorials are about the stuff that don't involve the merging, like the quests or generating revenue in merge planes or stuff like that. But it's so intuitive when you combine two pieces together and it generates. Because in other games, for instance, if think of an RPG, when you want to craft a higher tier, you have a sword, I don't know, and you want to upgrade that sword. You're not going to use two swords of the same level. You're going to use the sword and some sort of material. And that's not very intuitive because you don't really know what materials you need. Sometimes you need to Google the stuff, like for higher levels. But in merge games, it's really intuitive. Like you always know, for a level 3, I'm going to need 2 level 2s. There's nothing that's not easy to understand there. So I think that their accessibility is their biggest selling point.
Well, I think that's a really interesting point, because I think you're absolutely spot on. The accessibility and the simplicity of them is what gives that initial hook. But I think what's really generating the revenue for some of these games is creating other elements of game mechanic that complement and add more diversity to that very, very simple core mechanic. So with merge mansion, adding those drains into the merge economy to remove items continuously. So although you feel like you're completing something and you're progressing and you're opening up new areas of the garden and house and what have you, actually what that's doing is it's kind of resetting your board all the time. So whereas with planes, it's go to the highest level you possibly can. With 2048, it's go to the highest level. With merge mansion, you're kind of giving the player a reason to restart that merge process again and again. So that those first 4 or 5 levels where you can get up to a level 3 or 4 level item really quickly, that's really rewarding and really fun being able to do that quickly and get to it. But then it removes that, and then you get to start it again. But it doesn't feel like you're losing out on anything. I think this is the key to taking a merge game and making it really compelling, which is nobody likes the really boring part where you've got to level 20 and you need 500,000 level 1 items. It would be super rewarding to get there, but actually you'd probably lose a lot of players along the way. Whereas actually looking at what you can do with the economies and with the progression, so the player always has something to do and it can always be engaged with the game, I think is the key to it. So what we'd like to do now, to talk about what's going to happen next, is we do these webinars every couple of weeks. For anyone who is new to Machinations, and when you were looking at some of these models, it didn't make complete sense, please do sign up for our Machinations 101 session that we have coming up in a couple of weeks' time. That's a great way of learning all about the Machinations objects, how they can all be configured, how they're all set up, and also what we can do to create these different types of models. So you jumping in, is there something else you wanted to add?
Yeah. Thanks for that.
What I was going to wrap us up and then kick us off into the game design talk.
Oh, okay. It's about that. Okay.
Yeah. So that's kind of it for our kind of merge game webinar today. Thank you all so much for joining us.